Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you guys are watching a video like this, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that the current economic climate is a very tough one to operate in. It's very difficult to navigate the jobs market, and a lot of companies are drastically altering the way that they do things. One company that we've looked at recently is Amazon, who announced just about a month ago that they are laying off 14,000 employees, all while sitting on around about 100 billion in cash. And the question is, why? The question is what comes next. And the question is this a broader outlook for jobs in the future? Well, it certainly seems to be something which is driving a lot of fear. Amazon's reduction of managerial ranks is something which is increasing white collar worries. Now, if you've been following on the story, as we have here on this channel, you guys will know that Amazon have spoken about the want and the need to specifically cut back on those management positions, specifically the middle management positions, which is quite interesting. Normally when we talk about layoffs, it's the more unskilled workers in the more basic jobs which are being laid off. However, interestingly in this case, that is not what we are seeing. We are seeing those middle management layers being dissolved and lots of people being affected. Now, the thing is, many businesses are also adopting these strategies to reduce their middle management, independent of current policy upheavals. Now, an example of that came from the Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, who recently says he has plans to eliminate bureaucracy across the company's vast operations. Now, again, it's one of these things where we see a couple of companies do it, and it basically becomes the norm. A lot of people suggest this could be kind of a second round from what we saw in Twitter. We saw Twitter laying off basically the majority of their workforce, or a substantial amount, not too long ago. Now we're seeing Amazon and a lot of other companies trying to operate in this new way. Will it work? Is it viable? Well, we'll see. The intention apparently is to answer the current consumer demand and improve the shopping experience. Of course, Amazon is basically a consumer company, so that's what they want to do. But we saw Amazon's CEO not too long ago, as you guys will know, giving a very, very hard message to their staff. And this is really quite interesting. Arguably, you could make the argument it's quite worrying. If we have a read of this, which we are going to do, I want to bring this to your attention. So the Amazon CEO says that he is trying to change the way things are done. He's emphasized his goal of eliminating bureaucracy from Amazon's work culture, and he said that the best leaders get the most done with the least resources required to do the job. He also stated that every new project shouldn't take 50 or more people to do it. The way to get ahead in Amazon is to go accumulate a giant not to go ahead and accumulate a giant team. There is no award for having a large team, and we want to be scrappy about this and do a lot more things. So he's urged employees to move fast and act like owners, as some of the company's competition are working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. This is going to be really interesting to see how this is playing out, as we are in a very, very difficult time for these sorts of jobs anyway. Like I say, it is now the more white collar jobs, the more technical stuff, which we are see major layoffs. The tech sector, so many different industries being affected by massive layoffs at the minute. And again, this is particularly interesting because in a time where there are so many job cuts on a federal level, on a corporation level, a lot of people are obviously going to be wondering, what can they do about this? If Amazon wants them to work X amount of hours per day, it's not like it might have been 5-10 years ago, where you could just go over to the next company or the next company. It's quite difficult to find these jobs. And again, people need to make a living, so workers will likely just have to keep up with what they can do. They're already in enough fear of losing their jobs. Again, Amazon does operate in a fiercely competitive market, and it has to focus on moving faster, apparently. So, the intention is, of course, to move fast and deliver high standards. If you want to be fast, you can still be fast and have high quality, he said. We've done it for many years, though we can still be faster. Speed is a leadership decision. The leadership team has to believe it's a priority, reinforce it constantly, organize and remove structural barriers, and build modular in ways that enable pace. But speed doesn't happen unless the entire company and culture embraces it. Really, really interesting that we're seeing such words coming, of course, from the top of Amazon. You know, the main bit for me that stands out, and again, it's not necessarily said that this is what Amazon employees should do, but it is this bit, right? Move fast, act like owners. But some of the competition is apparently working 7 days a week and 15 hours a day. That's the bit that to me speaks out in a way, right? Because obviously it's almost implied that at the very least a harder work ethic must be instilled, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Obviously, these people are paid to work. But where does this go? And what does this say for corporate culture going forwards, right? We're looking at companies expecting more and more from their employees. And yeah, it's a very difficult time to be looking for jobs in this sector. I really want to know what you guys think to this, because this is a really, really interesting story that we're seeing coming out. And again, Amazon have just announced, or recently just announced, 14,000 layoffs. The jobs market isn't what it was, and this is certainly something to pay attention to. Now, of course, Amazon does have lots of employees, supposedly over 1.5 million. They are a global company. But should we still pay attention to this? Yes, we should. And should we still pay attention to which employees are being laid off? Absolutely. This speaks to the way that the company is being managed. It speaks to the ambitions that the business has going forwards. And this is a really interesting time to be documenting this sector. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. Thank you guys, and I hope I'll see you soon. Goodbye.